Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
Now, when you're 15 years old and your identity is found in those records, and now I'm very confused 15-year-old watching all of these people throw their records into a bonfire, and they seemed very happy about it, and I was not very happy about it. I'll just put it that way. So can you imagine listening to Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, Comfortably Numb, Another Brick in the Wall, and now you're hearing, you know, Lord, we lift your name on high. And it's just, it's a whole different kind of a trip.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land. This is the A-Train. This is Intersect Radio, coming to you all the way from the dungeon in Nashville, Tennessee. Today, man, we have a very special guest today, all the way from San Antonio, Texas, where I hear it's kind of gloomy there today. And here in Nashville, it's pretty darn beautiful. 72 degrees, light breeze, sun is shining, birds are chirping, dogs are outside barking. You couldn't ask for anything better. But enough of that. My guest today is the one, the only, Mr. Chris Taylor. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for having me on the show today. Yeah, this is great. It's so cool to talk with you.
Yeah, man. For those of you who don't know, Chris is a musician, composer, songwriter, visual artist, recording guy. You've done like 30 albums. Is that true?
Yeah, I just keep going. I'm the janitor. I'm like the CEO and the janitor of everything I do. So you got to, you just kind of, an artist should create. So I just wake up every day and create. And whether or not it makes a dent in the world is not necessarily the point. We always want people to hear it and experience it. But I think it's more of the idea of wake up and get to work in creating something, whether it's a piece of art or music. So, yeah. Yeah.
What time do you get up?
I'm a fairly early riser. For someone that doesn't have to get up, I get up around 6:30 or maybe 7 in the morning. And I try to start the day before anyone else in the house, although it's becoming more and more difficult. But the idea of waking up and going down to write something or even if it's just writing the first few thoughts in the top of your head in a notebook so that they're not lost by the time you take the dog for the walk or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Do you stay up late?
No, not these days, unless I'm gigging. I rarely stay up late. It's 9:30 or 10 and I'm like fading off if I'm at a friend's house or even if I'm out to watch another band. I'll be having a great time. But and plus I take medication. I have epilepsy. And so I take medication at about 10 o'clock at night. And right after that, I really start to kind of spiral into a sleepy haze. So it's good if I'm home or near home so I can just kind of chill out. But yeah. Yeah.
How long have you been diagnosed with epilepsy?
Oh man, since I was about 2 years old. So I've been living with it my entire life. And
oh, really?
Yeah. The kind I have, it's one of those things where, for everyone that has epilepsy, it's a little different. And for me, I have these grand mal seizures, which is like Like if you're on your computer and you have a whole bunch of programs up and running, it's like, bam, it just shuts down. And when you turn the computer back on, it takes a long time for all the programs to kind of, that's the way it is for me. I'll completely disappear from the world, and, minutes later I'll come to, but I won't really know what has gone on. And, fortunately for me, I don't have them quite a bit. And I'm on, like I said, I'm on medication, and if I take care of myself and my diet and my sleep and other types of things, I'm usually pretty good. So it's been years, but still there's that distant in the back of your mind fear that today could be the day, or something. So it can be kind of scary, but there are people who have seizures every day, quite often during the day, and they have to be monitored and watched all the time. And so, I'm not there, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, it's a crazy thing, but I've sort of lived my life like, I'm blessed in so many ways. And so I'm not really complaining about it, but the older I get, the more I realize kind of its effect on me, physically and maybe even creatively. Maybe that's why my output is so great, because my brain is just constantly going.
Wow. Yeah. Man, are you married?
I am. I'm going on 14 years. Me and Catherine have been hanging out together for 14 years, and it's very cool.
You got kids?
We do. I married into a family. I was like instant family, just add dad kind of a thing. And both of our kids now are grown up and have moved out of, not only out of the house, but out of the state. So now they're living these great productive lives up in Michigan, and going to school, have jobs, the whole bit. So yeah, we're
they're
very
both
proud
in
of
Michigan?
Them. Yeah, they have extended family up there, so they went up to kind of see what that's all about, and they both ended up loving it and are enjoying their time up there. So it's kind of odd being like, we're in our 40s, I'm on my tail end of the 40s, but it's like, oh wow, we don't have any kids in the house; they're all grown up, and what do we do with ourselves? So I've turned my house. Yeah.
You turn your house into what?
Turn my house into a recording studio and art space, like whatever I can do to make this thing work, and so it's kind of, the kids have never minded that anyway. They've always loved the different musicians coming in and out of the house, and who's going to show up next, and what are they going to be playing, and that kind of thing. So it's cool. But yeah, now they're always checking in on me, going, "How's it going? Where are you playing now?" And all, just they're very, very bright young kids, and I feel like my wife did all the hard work. I was just there.
Are there two boys, two girls, girl, boy?
A boy named Dylan, who's older, and then Darby. So it's Dylan and Darby, and it's just they're super, super cool.
Man, tell me, did you grow up in San Antonio?
No, I grew up in upstate New York. I was born and raised in a small town right on Lake Ontario. Like my backyard was Lake Ontario, and the town was called Oswego. And I would spend most of my days, skipping rocks into Lake Ontario. And there was a movie theater in that town that was built in the 40s, I believe. And it was just this beautiful theater. My sister was the manager. So I got all throughout the 70s. I was born in 69. And so all through the 70s, I got to see free movies. And so, that's when some of the big epic movies came out, and, Star Wars and I saw it all for free and ate way too much popcorn and all that jazz. But yeah, so that was my growing up. So I was daydreaming a lot. I was a daydreamer, skipping rocks in Lake Ontario. And then the theater was old time. So it had the balcony and the plush seating, and it had a stage with a big red curtain. And I'd always ask my sister, take me with you to work. And before the theater opened up to the public, I would go up on stage and, she'd turn all these lights on. And it was just like I dreamt of being a performer before I knew how to do anything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so that was my childhood. And then I never knew my father, so I got a phone call asking if he wanted me to come down to San Antonio, where he was living, and spend the summer vacation with him. And that was like 15 years old. Oh, okay. And so I'm still on that same. I'm still on that summer vacation.
You're 15.
Right.
And so you stayed.
I stayed, and funny enough, my father and I never really got along. Which is just crazy. But the women in Texas, oh my goodness, it was. I think that's what really. I was like, oh my God, I met someone, fell in love, and it was my first girlfriend, and I was like, I have to stay here for a while, and I just sort of. But other than just. I wasn't like a womanizer. It was more like the idea of coming from a very small town to San Antonio, which is like a very large, small town in a lot of ways. I realized that there was going to just be more opportunity for me down here than there would be if I were to turn around and go back to this, one movie theater town kind of a thing.
Yeah. When did you start playing music? And how did that come about?
My goodness, I went. My dad, I was never like a religious guy or spiritual or whatever. When I was younger, but when I got off the plane coming to Texas, my father immediately. It was like this wave of religion, and we were all of a sudden going to church, 3-4 times a week. And I was just inundated with that culture. And this was, like I said, 1984. Mm-hmm. And the youth pastor at my church took me in kind of under his wing. And he said, you seem like a real creative guy. Why don't you come over to the house? I've got this thing called a 4-track. And he knew that I wrote a lot, and I had these books where I had written, lyrics or, potential lyrics to songs. And so I brought my book over, and his name is Rod, and Rod is, super great creative guy. And he played drums and he played keyboards. And so there was kind of like, he was half the band, just himself. And then this other guy, Brian, my friend Brian Slagle, had played this guitar. He had this black guitar, big, poofy black hair. And I was like, we got to get this guy to come over and play. So we ended up creating these wild, silly little songs on the 4-track. And from then on out, I was like, I have to do this for the rest of my life. This is like once you get the idea of like, wait, you have an idea in your head that only exists in your head. And then you can put it onto a cassette tape and then record over it multiple times so that there's a song there. And all of a sudden it's like 20 minutes later, you have something that is uniquely yours. And I was like, this is mind blowing. It was better than any drug, better than any other kind of high. It was like this creativity high. And that's where it all got started.
Wow. So what gave you the impetus to start writing? Even before that, before you went to Texas, how did you start just writing?
I think I had friends and I had a family, but for some weird reason, I always felt alone or isolated. No one isolated me. But, when my friends were playing street football, I would be on the porch writing something, or I would find a way to go to the park or go out by the lake and just write my feelings down. And it could be something ridiculous. Like I really dig this girl at school, but she doesn't know I exist. You know, like it could be that kind of thing, or it could be these, you know, I look back on it now. I didn't know it at the time because I was just too young and oblivious to recognize it. But I look back on it now, and a lot of them were sort of spiritual yearnings for something, but I didn't know what that something was. So that's kind of how it all, you know, started, with me putting it down in these little, and I used to write in, like graphic notebooks, or like, they had the little, graphic charts on them. You know, it wasn't just regular college ruled or notebook lined. It was just this really wild notebook. So I'd write very, very small. And so now today that I need glasses, I look at this and I'm like, how in the world did I write that small?
I used to see.
Yeah. You know how it is, man. But yeah. And then I think in some crazy way, because I went to the movies all the time, I can't remember what year it came out, but Prince came out with that movie Purple Rain. Yeah. And, you know, to go along with the album, and my older sister did not want me to see it because she knew this is going to be trouble. There's stuff in here that my younger brother should not be seeing. But I begged and pleaded with her, and finally she just kind of gave up. I think I exhausted her, wore her down. And that movie, the essence of that movie was like, I'll never be that guy. I cannot do that stuff, but I knew I wanted to be a performer of some sort. And I think that movie was another one of those, like little signposts along the way, and that said, this is your trajectory. This is where you're going to go. And that just meant me picking up the guitar and learning some chords, you know?
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I guess you were destined for it. I mean, not too many kids go off and start writing, you know? Yeah, you know. It's usually the other way around, you know?
True. And I think it was probably more for therapeutic reasons than it was to, like, I didn't really have a desire to be famous or to be known. I mean, you always want your work to get out there. You always want the people who do hear it to love it. Yeah. But the idea of becoming famous was never really on my, fame is very different from just doing the work. And for me, I was just like, I just want to record. How do I get to record? And that was it for me.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about that when we come back. Got to take a break. Pitbull Audio and Studio Instrument Rentals, folks. We'll be right back with my guest, Mr. Chris Taylor.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Welcome back, folks. That's a tune called Into the Impossible by today's guest, Mr. Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor is out there in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, man. Haven't been out there in a while.
Yeah, you know, I still feel very New York. I'm a New York soul in San Antonio, and the food is great down here, and I think that's what keeps me here. That's kind of weird to say, but you go outside, once you're conditioned to like really amazing Mexican food, it's really hard to get that anywhere else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to be there. It helps.
That's right.
Now, you told us that you didn't go to San Antonio until you were like 15. Your dad sent for you?
Yeah. It was, it was that real out of the blue phone call. There are a lot of mysteries in my family, and I won't go into, that, but it was, I feel like when I look back on my childhood, there's a lot of missing, like fill in the blanks to my life. And so why my father left might be something I'll never know. And, but the idea was, sure, I'll go down and get to know him. And literally when the plane landed and we got into the car, it was like nonstop Jesus talk and church talk, which was the whole different world for me. Because I, up until 15, that was not my life. That was not my, that was not on my radar of things to be interested in. And
so
one of the first,
you never went to church before that, huh?
No. The only, we played stickball, and the Catholic church behind our house let us spray paint a strike zone on the side of their church wall. And so they were really cool for doing that. And we played stickball in their parking lot. That was my idea of going to church.
Okay.
So now I'm submerged in it. And one of the first church experiences I had was, I went to like I don't know what you call it, but it was one of those like church events where they were burning all your albums, like bring all your album. Yeah. And so,
oh man,
Dad gathered up my Pink Floyd and Men at Work and Michael Jackson albums. And
oh no.
Now, when you're 15 years old and your identity is found in those records, you don't know. That was it. That was where my identity was. And now I'm very confused 15-year-old watching all of these people throw their records into a bonfire, and they seemed very happy about it, and I was not very happy about it. I'll just put it that way. It was a miserable night for me, Aaron.
You were still 15 at the time?
Yeah.
So you had just gotten there recently.
It was a whole different world instantly for me.
Thrown into the church, and you got to burn your records. What else did you have to do?
Well, then those records were replaced with these, with this music from the Maranatha Praise and Worship. So can you imagine listening to Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, Comfortably Numb, Another Brick in the Wall, and now you're hearing, Lord, we lift your name on high. And it's just, it's a whole different kind of a trip. And, but funny enough, through all that, it's, the strangest thing about that is so my father, he was very manipulative, and then also very abusive. And so there was this physical abuse and mental abuse, but yet I would go to church. And then I was in sort of like in my mind, sort of like this no way out situation. And then I started to kind of make friends with some kids in the youth group, and I would start going to church more often just so I could escape being at home. And so I'd be going to all sorts of prayer meetings and Bible studies. And it's not that I was rejecting any of that as much as I just didn't have a lot of interest in that. But through that, I found these really great people, and I couldn't reconcile what they were saying about God and spirituality to what I was experiencing at home. And at that impressionable age, I was a very confused and scared kid, and all I really wanted to do was write music and learn how to, I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be like one of 4 people writing killer songs, and I just didn't know how to get there from where I was.
Wow. So when did your dad's faith become your faith?
My goodness, I don't know if I believe the same way my father did and still does. And I've gone through
Was it a denomination?
Sort of non-denominational at the time.
Okay.
Interdenominational and I don't know how you classify it, but I think I just realized somewhere along the way that I'm really interested in the person of Jesus, but I don't know about a religion. I don't know if I want to call myself anything, but I know I was really into who this Jesus guy was. And, but I was hanging out with all my friends there, and I have no problem back in those days when I was younger, just hanging out and going to all the normal church functions. But it was when I got older and everything sort of, you were labeled. And then of course, as a musician, you were labeled one way or labeled another way. And I was just, I'm not a fan of labels. And so I would always be running away from the labels, but secretly interested in getting deeper in my faith.
Wow. I would imagine that most of your friends there have been going to church most of their life, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For them, it's, second nature with all that stuff. And it was fascinating, it was fascinating for me. And I, to this very day, I have friends, I don't talk to them all the time, but I have friends that I still think of as sort of my anchors, some of the guys who just, I can go to at any time and go, all right, I know it's been a while, but let's catch up, and I love that, even though we've sort of taken different paths in our journey and just in life in general. So, and I think that's pretty cool. So
when did you start your first band?
It had to be in the late 80s. And I remember hearing about this festival somewhere in the cornfields of Illinois called the Cornerstone Music Festival or something like that. And so one of my friends, we saved up some money, and one of my friends said, let's drive up to Illinois this year for Cornerstone Music Festival. And he was the same guy that sort of smuggled me all of this crazy music they were called Christian bands, but it didn't sound like the Maranatha worship music that I was listening to at the time. And among one of those bands was the 77s, whom I instantly fell in love with, and to this day have never wavered in all of their incarnations. I've loved every bit of it. And there was the Choir and Adam Again and these other bands that were always sort of off the beaten path from what was happening in the mainstream of music. But that to me was like, I would rather be a part of this chorale, this group of musicians, than I don't want anything to do with the mainstream. I want to be where these guys are. Mm-hmm. And to me, it all felt like you guys were all one big, family, one big club, even though it wasn't necessarily like that. Right. But when we got to Cornerstone Festival, we ended up playing this rickety little stage out by some sort of a pond to a bunch of sweaty campers. And I was like, this is the life, man.
Oh, you actually played that first time?
Yeah, actually played. It was crazy.
Oh, who did you play with?
It was myself and someone you may remember, a creative genius named Matt Slocum.
Matt Slocum.
Who of course went on to do Sixpence None The Richer, and he's just this beautiful soul and brilliant person. But yeah, it was he and I on this rickety little stage, and it was just a duo. We didn't even do like a full band thing, and we did can't remember, maybe 30 or 40-minute little show for people. And then I don't know if it was a year or two later, we played the new band showcase. We played in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. And I was hooked. I was like, this is it. Why would anybody who can do this ever want to do something else?
How did you meet Matt?
Matt lived a couple miles north of me in a little town called New Braunfels. And we have a mutual friend, Tobin, who was playing bass with me, and I needed a guitar player. And Tobin says, I know a guy. And so, a couple days later, this guy shows up with this bright yellow Ibanez guitar. This had to be like 1991. Maybe it was earlier than that. It was a little bit earlier than that, but it was just crazy. It looked like this rocker's guitar. And I was like, I'm trying to play really cool vibey music. And then Matt starts playing, and it was just like instant. I fell in love with that guy. I totally fell in love with him and the way he plays the guitar, and he was irreplaceable. No one plays like him. And so that was how he and I got together, but we were instant friends and instant writing partners and all that stuff.
Did you form Love Coma after that first Cornerstone experience?
Pretty much, yeah. We that's exactly right. It was because I was going under the band Chris Taylor and Windows, and then that was kind of my moniker for from the late 80s until then. But yeah, Love Coma was when we decided we're going to get serious about this, and we're going to go play everywhere, clubs, bars, sleazy little joints, because we just wanted to see how our music stacked up against all these other local bands and regional bands. And that's when we got serious and started actually rehearsing and writing songs and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's Love Coma was sort of this garage band that took off and got like a nationwide following. And who knew, that was like a cool next step for me.
So it was like you, Matt, was Dodds in that band?
Chris Dodds. Chris Dodds was this wild, untamed drummer that he was like a restless native back there on the drums, and I was kind of thought we were going to be more of an alternative folk thing, but when he got behind the drum kit, it turned into more of a tribal rock and roll thing, which was great.
Mm-hmm. Who played bass?
We had a couple of different bass players. The original bass player was a guy named Jeff Duncan, who's now like a missionary in New Mexico. So he's obviously gone on to much more important things than me. But Jeff was great because he's this white boy, but he played really heavy, kind of funky bass, and was super smooth at it too. And I was like, where is this coming from within him, you know? And so together, the four of us had a really distinct sound. We made a couple of different records, one of which, my favorite, is called Language of Fools, which Mr. Michael Rowe produced for us. And that took off and just became a sort of a cult classic within the ranks of some of the, the music fandom back in those days. That was like in 1995, I think.
And you recorded in San Antonio?
No, we actually went to Sacramento and recorded out there.
Sacramento. Uh-huh.
Yeah, which was like a thrill for us. We're like, we're going to go see where all the magic happens, And
what studio did you use?
For basic tracking, we recorded in Paradise Studios, and then we recorded all the fun stuff at Plaid Jacket, which is with John Flanagan and Guy Niosi. Those guys were super cool.
Yeah, man, my old homeboys.
That's right. So it's so can you imagine from where I came from and sitting there reading the liner notes on the 77's records to all of a sudden now I'm working with the same guys, the same names in those liner notes. And it was, for somebody else, it would be the equivalent of, Paul McCartney or Brian Eno or Daniel Lanois or some of these other great names, which are amazing. But for me, you guys were my McCartney and Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois, so it's like at that time of my life, I'm like, I'm working with people I never in my dreams thought I'd ever get a chance to even be in the same room with, let alone they have input on my songs and they're encouraging my songwriting. Very cool.
Yeah, that's great, man. Great story. Well, we got a commercial break coming up here, and we're going to shout out to Pitbull Audio and Studio Instrument Rentals and all my friends at Innovative Percussion. And we'll be right back with my guest, Mr. Chris Taylor. And we're going to get into Chris's music and his visual artwork when we come back.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Everybody got a broken heart. Everybody got a broken heart. Everybody got a broken heart. There's a man that I once knew. He wears mirrored shades. Whatever lies behind those eyes.
Welcome back, folks. That's music by my guest today, Mr. Chris Taylor.
Yeah.
And before we went on commercial break there, Chris, you were in Sacramento recording your first Love Coma record with Mr. Mikey Rowe, Dr. Love at the helm.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Now, what label was that on?
At that was on REX, which was sort of like an alternative Christian record label. I don't know what it was, but yeah, they were
last
very...
week's. My guest last week was a REX artist.
Oh wow,
Nick Giaccona.
A few of us made it out alive. Yes, I remember Nick.
A few of you made it out alive.
You know, I mean, but you can say, I'm not knocking REX. I mean, I'm so grateful for the people that worked there and pushed that record. You know, it wasn't an obvious kind of it wasn't a record that was easy to sell, because back in those days, they wanted to hear more Jesus lyrics, and I didn't write obvious Jesus lyrics. So our record was very difficult to sell. The music was amazing, but I think it was more lyric driven. And for us creative types, I was on a different planet when it came to doing that kind of stuff, but and still am probably. But we had a blast doing that, and you know, it was so cool to be in a recording studio and to see how other people did it, and how to get that kind of inspiration and motivation from some of my heroes on my own music. It's the coolest thing in the world.
What was that budget like?
I don't think there was much of a budget there. Like I'll never know, because at that time I was pretty much oblivious to all the inner workings of things. But it was probably around $10,000 to do everything, and which is not a whole lot of money when you have to pay a lot of different people.
Right.
So I think Mike gave us the biggest bang for the buck with the kind of songs we were writing. And we got there with our act together as much as, four young guys can do. But Mike really focused us and said, okay, here's the record we're going to make. And with that, he was just on top of everything, making sure he brought the hooks out, the best parts, attention to detail in every aspect of it.
Yeah. So how long was Love Coma together?
Let's see. That would have been probably 92 or 93. Yeah, it's probably like 1992 to the tail end of 1996, which looking back on it, I'm like, really? That's it? It seemed like we were together for longer, but that was, that was it. I think after a few, and you probably know this more than me, but after a few tours where there's a lot of work and no money to show for it, and not even like, we're not talking about like, oh yeah, kind of money. Like, oh, I can't believe we made this. I'm talking about like, we can't even pay the electricity bill. Holy man. Like after we pay for the van rental and the hotels and, you know, all the nonsense. And you're like, what are we doing wrong? How does this work? And and at that point, the guys in the band were having, getting married and having relationships. And I'm like, I think I should call this quits before we all get very sour, whether it be sour at the business or sour at each other. But I could just tell we're not the band that's going to be popular because we're not saying all the right things in our lyrics. We're saying something different. And that was, I had a clear vision that I should just go my own way. And that was sort of what happened next is without any sort of bitter feelings, nobody in the band, was like, I can't believe you're breaking up the band. Everybody just kind of felt, yeah, you're right.
Traitor.
You're right. I know. Which if somebody kind of had put up more of a fight for the band, I might have kept it going until we, imploded ourselves. But
but everybody else had an electricity bill too.
Yeah.
Bill.
It's exactly it.
It's coming. Yeah.
It's exactly it,
Yeah, it's rough out there, man.
Right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, I think, all of a sudden I found myself without a band. All I knew how to do was play 3 chords on an acoustic guitar and blow into a dusty, dirty harmonica. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? Oh, my God.
So when did you take up visual arts?
I think I've just been doing that ever since I was a kid. Like every kid, you just grab a crayon or a marker and you draw all over a piece of paper. And that's what I'm still doing. I'm just using different stuff now. And traded my paper in for canvas or wood or whatever else I can get my hands on. And I've been doing it for quite a bit, and I would just do a couple of paintings here or there and, set it next to my CDs at the back table and hope somebody would buy it. And some of them would sell and sometimes they wouldn't. But I think over the past probably 4 or 5 years, I went, I need to be doing this every day, like just creating and painting. And really another good friend of yours and somebody I wish I was closer to, Jimmy Abegg. He was the first person I ever saw that was like, wait a minute, you can do music and art. And I loved the kind of art he did, and he still does. And I'm just like, he was my first sort of inspiration. Him and the guy from the Electric Company, that old kids show where he would like, he would show up in a swimming pool and paint the letter 8 on some bald guy's head or something. Like, I love that guy. So between him and Jimmy A, I was like, this is what I want to do.
So do you, or have you had any like gallery shows and stuff like that in San Antonio?
You know what? I have one at the end of this month at a place called High Wire Arts here in San Antonio. And there's a new venue in Marble Falls, Texas, which is a few hours from San Antonio, called the Uptown Art House. And they brought me in and I did like a musical performance and had a showing of my artwork. But what's crazy is unlike musicians, it was easier for me to get connected to other musicians, but for some reason it's been harder for me to connect myself with other visual artists. And so I feel like I'm always just making it up as I go along, or just finding, like little coffee houses or wine bars and restaurants to put up my stuff, as opposed to actual like artiste galleries. I feel like that's you know, a couple of classes above my level or something. I don't know.
Okay. Well, before we get too much further ahead, why don't you share with the audience all of your social media links and
yeah. You know, as I'm trying to distance myself from the chaos of social media, I try to only use it to put out music, something musical or something artistic, or to try to promote my friends who are doing the same thing. You can find me on Facebook at Chris Taylor Music, and Instagram at Chris Taylor World. And that's my official website as well, christaylorworld.com. And then I'm occasionally on Twitter at Real Chris Taylor, which it's so ridiculous because I don't have a life that's interesting enough to be on Twitter. And I had no idea what to call my little Twitter handle. So I just said, I'm the Real Chris Taylor.
And you're not.
Yeah, and I'm probably not, but that's sort of stuck, and that's where you can find me. So,
yeah, cool. Well, who are your musical influences?
Oh my gosh, I have lots, but to narrow it down, I grew up just totally loving European music. So while all this amazing music was happening in the States, I was oblivious to it. All the Motown, all the stuff from the 60s and the 70s that was happening in my own backyard, I was paying attention to bands like the Waterboys, which are sort of this sort of Irish-Scottish hybrid band. Hot House Flowers, they're an Irish band. Echo and the Bunnymen. And then, of course, along came the 77s, the Choir, Adam Again, that crew of bands and artists. I totally love them and still listen to them now as much as I ever have. And then of course, Bob Dylan and Tom Petty. I'm just like, how can, you can't be a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar and not have them, not completely absorb their music. And then, and through Tom Petty, so I have to thank Tom Petty for this. So Tom, if you're tuning in from celestial heaven, I have to thank you because he had this show called Tom Petty's Buried Treasure. It was on XM satellite radio, and he would play his favorite records. And a lot of those records were these super catchy, whether it's Motown or I don't even know. That's how oblivious I am to American music. But it was these super catchy, don't bore us, get to the chorus kind of songs where you're like 10 seconds into the song, you're like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world, songs nobody writes like that anymore. Nobody even tries to. And I have just fallen in love with all of this music. And so the record I'm working on now is me trying to write these don't bore us, get to the chorus type of songs, which if you've heard anything I've ever done, it's usually like these long twisted Lou Reed meets Bob Dylan kind of things. Yeah.
Well, back in the day, there was a time limit of, on the radio.
Yeah.
Your song couldn't be too long, so you had to hurry up and make your point.
That's right. And now that, there's people are so intoxicated with social media, it's almost like everyone's attention span, you got to hook them within 10 seconds or else they're scrolling to the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's almost worse than the radio.
Well, you got some good write-ups about your last record called Never Ending Now. Never Ending Now.
That's right.
When did that come out?
That came out in 2016, and because I'm just a glutton for punishment, I decided to make a double album in an age where people barely listen to a single. But again, I made it for myself. I don't go, well, people really want, 27 new songs from me all at once, I don't really think like that. I just go, what feels right for me? And I just, I was inspired, and I spent a couple of months just writing, and I put out, out of the 40 or so songs I wrote in a few months, I put out my favorite, I don't know how many songs are on that, but at least 25, 26 songs are on that record. And
is there a theme to that record?
There might be, it's like when you're, I don't know if it's like this for you, but like when you're involved in the recording, it takes up every part of your mind and soul and spirit. But then when you're done with it, you feel like, okay, I'm on to the next thing. And then it has like a life of its own or something. But I think the title, Never Ending Now, means sort of like live in the moment. Don't worry about your past. Don't let your past haunt you. Don't let all the mistakes you've made haunt you. Don't worry about your future, whether or not you're going to be able to pay next month's CPS bill or telephone bill. Don't worry about how rent is going to get paid when you're living day to day as a musician. Live today. Love the people around you. It's that kind of thing.
That's cool, man. And that's a great place to end our conversation today. Words of wisdom from Mr. Chris Taylor. Chris, I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Well, I love you very much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Say hello to Dodds for me and all the fellas.
I definitely will.
Okay, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be the music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. Pitbullaudio.com.